passion lets us feel alive. How many times have we experienced something that was so good, and when we think about it, it gives us a tingling sensation? Well, one of the things that you can do is just try to recall all the very positive and passionate feelings you've had and see how do you feel, because if you connect with something that's authentic for you, you'll feel it. You'll feel it in your very chakras and energy places in the body. No matter how long it's been, you'll still feel it. That kind of reconnecting sends off all forms of charges in the brain and throughout our body. Hormones start to be measured differently. Proteins vibrate and react. It is a pleasure sensation. And that pleasure creates a sensation of passion. We want to recreate it. I'm Gary Null, and I'd like to welcome you to a special presentation. This is a continuation of our series on self-empowering, providing tools that allow us to make constructive change in our thoughts and ideas and actions. Today's discussion is on embracing passion. So a lot of what we do each day is try to recreate sensations that gave us very special feelings. Now, to do that in a positive way is constructive. To do it where we sublimate with artificial stimulation is negative. But we become addicted to the sensation of how we feel. And one of the things that we're not used to is not having a feeling that we have some control over. Now think of all the times when you had a relationship and you were connected to the passion in that relationship. You felt good. You felt excited. You couldn't wait to see the person. You couldn't wait to be in their presence, because the closer you were, the more intense that intimate feeling was. And it just wasn't sexual. Intimacy is far more profound than sexuality. Intimacy vibrates at the deeper level of our being, the spiritual self.
You fully fell in love. The first day you fully fell in love and you saw this other person and you really wanted to have this life shared with this person. Something different happens, because from this moment on is what I call the honeymoon period. And the honeymoon period is this beautiful, wonderful period for almost everyone who's really experienced the honeymoon period. And I say, well, why is it so beautiful compared to the day before you met this person? You had the same life going, and it wasn't this way. Then you meet this person, and all of a sudden, your life becomes this amazing story. The question is, what was different? And the answer is, when we're in the honeymoon period, we're generally pretty conscious and present all the time. The significance about it is, what if we lived a life being present and conscious? And the answer is, it would essentially have all of the characteristics of a honeymoon for as long as we live. And I think this is really an insight from nature that says this is a good start to creating that beauty and wonder of life that we have before us.
Remember, every one of these 100 trillion cells has a consciousness. If every cell in your body did not have a consciousness, it wouldn't know what to do. But you didn't tell your stomach how to digest food. You didn't tell your lungs to breathe or your eyes to blink, so it creates tear ducts. You don't chafe your eyes. You didn't tell the veins to carry the blood back up at a certain rate and the arteries to carry it down. You didn't show how you can take oxygen into a cell and carbon dioxide out of the cell. You didn't show how through peristalsis, the wave-like rhythmic movement, you can move food through the intestine and out the body, but first take out what's important, so you're not taking good things out of the body, you're taking dead cells and bacteria and undigested cellulose and fibers. How does it know to do that? How does 100 trillion cells work in perfect harmony? Always, always for your betterment. It has a consciousness. A consciousness that preceded life, because there was nothing at birth that was instructive on how you should live your life. Your mother didn't teach your heart how to beat or your brain how to think. You had to be born with innate knowledge. Innate knowledge then has to be matched with conditioned response, conditioned wisdom. So now you're born with an energy that is perfect, total harmony. And then we come into a world that challenges us. Sometimes environmental challenges, like pollutants and vaccines with thimerosal, the mercury, that can overstimulate neurons and disrupt them, causing neurological destruction. But in spite of all that, the body does something unique. It still tries to protect you. It's always working on your behalf. It tries to maximize its capacity to repair the damage that you've intentionally inflicted. Now, what belief system honors the body completely? What belief system says that the body and mind and spirit are all connected? Therefore, there's one consciousness. And if we understand the consciousness and we honor it, then we have created harmony with this life.
In the Native American tradition, there's a saying that the greatest journey that you'll ever take is from your head to your heart. And this kind of journey is literally true. That it's not the emotional heart, but it's more of this open-hearted awareness. It's a kind of intelligence or a center that when we look through the eyes of the heart or experience this kind of heart wisdom, and that potential is naturally available to everyone, and it's actually easier than most people think. It doesn't take the long training of the ancient meditators, that many people these days are really finding ways to access the now and access this awake awareness, which gives immediate freedom, but certainly it takes some practice to return and to remember to remember.
We go to schools that implant in our brain memories and the energy of that memory of good and bad knowledge, rights and wrongs. Things are seen as black and white. And then on top of what is taught in school, our parents, every single thing they do, we're looking at it as if it's real. So we look at our parents and everything they say and how they react, we take on and we mimic in our mind. And then they look at us and they have us behave in certain ways in order for them to feel that we are doing right. So we lose the capacity to have any sense of self. We only become an extension of the environmental self. So then we almost begin to abrogate any sense that we're real and have meaning on our own. We only have meaning by the rewards we're given through the acknowledgement of doing things that are right, or being reprimanded or punished for doing things that are wrong. But the right and wrong is not an individual right or wrong, it's a collective right or wrong, because society functions from a collective basis, with multiple tribes, each tribe having its own unique dynamic. And the dynamic is that the tribe is there to support its leadership, who then directs it.
During our developmental programming, we were actually programmed as children to listen to other people. And basically not just listen to them, but there were individuals that we were told to really listen to these people because these are the people that know. So basically what happens as we start to grow up, our automatic programming will have us listen to other people and buy their views, even if we consciously don't really agree with what they're saying. That if we let the subconscious program run, its program says, these words from this person are important and valuable. You use them and you operate from them. And again, since our conscious mind is usually in thought of the future or the past or solving a problem, it's not paying attention. So we actually become a voice or mimic of what we hear from other people. And this is basically an unconscious behavior. We really defer to people of some power or position and don't even question, because that's part of the programming.
And so we have wars. And why do we have wars? Because one tribe believes that they should have something another tribe has. Land, wealth, slaves. But power is the energy that they use. And power by itself is neutral. What we do with power gives it a vibration. We could use power to give everybody a better quality of life. We could have wonderful homes built throughout the country, whole communities for senior citizens, where they have organic gardens and they have animals for companionship. They have centers where they can continue to be there, and their skills that they use throughout their life can now be channeled up over the internet and video conferencing, so that if there's a troubled teen in a city, they can go in and say, I'm troubled, and what trouble they have, I'm having conflict with my peers, and they type in conflict with peers, and now you have the wisdom, the great mind with the compassion and love willing to help you with your problem.
If we really had the wonderful opportunity to start over, then the idea is what we could look at is the world that we have before us and recognize that we didn't just get this world by accident, that we were active creators of this world. The views of harmony and wholeness can become the view of the entire world when people own the power they have of changing their creations and creating something better.
Think of what we could do. We have the technology. There are tribes that the older you get, the more important you become. Look at the Latino family. Look at the Italian family. The older you are, the more important you are. You're not excluded. You're still loved and revered. But where I grew up, that's not true. It was very practical. You weren't thrown out, but no one sought you outside of a holiday to acknowledge you. And nobody really wanted to be around you because you no longer had anything you could communicate. You couldn't connect. You thought you were more happening, more hip, more aware. They're kind of old. That's how energies can separate from one another. So we no longer have the whole of life. We have taken a part out of it and put it aside. And then we say, but hold on a second. You're black. We got to take that out, because the whole doesn't recognize the uniqueness of individuals. They've separated it, and you're poor, we take that out. You're not educated, you take that out. You don't have the right job, we take you out. You don't have the right background or parents, we take you out. And lo and behold, we started to take the whole and break it into pieces and separate it. And then it's substantially refractionalized after that, until one day we wake up and we no longer have anything that's whole in our life. We're just holding on to little bits and pieces and trying to make the piece represent the whole. But it doesn't. It's not authentic.
I think one reason that we're not very well prepared to see everything as it truly is we live in sort of on the banks of the great river of denial, as I like to call it. And in our society, which is in a sense, I think, collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions in many ways, and maybe we're seeing the fall of Rome now as the American century has ended, and we're heading over the hill and other civilizations are coming up. I think we live in a lot of denial. We hide ourselves and our young people from the facts of death and aging. We've hidden from economic realities. We're living on credit. We have trillions of dollars in debt and things like this. So in outer and inner ways, we live in denial of the facts, and we're conditioned that way, we're brought up that way. And then that has its own karmic implications, its own chain of causation later.
The mind that we're familiar with, which is a crude, rudimentary expression of what the mind can actually become, is a mind that creates mistrust, that creates insecurity, that resides in fear, and that is informed by the 4 fundamental programs of our more primitive brain. And these 4 programs are the 4 F's, which are fear, feeding or scarcity, fighting, violence, and sex. We have today the capability of breaking free of these ancient biological programs that keep us trapped in fear, that keep us trapped in scarcity, that keep us subscribed to violent relationships with ourselves and with our loved ones, and that keep us trapped in predatory sexual encounters. To do that, we have to awaken the capabilities of our new brain, of our neocortex, of the Einsteinian brain, of the brain of Bach and Beethoven.
The fear reactions, as I understand it, scientifically come from a very base level of the brain. And so they're stored in there, and they don't really listen to the conscious mind, to the conceptual mind, which developed much later. One of the things that happens to many people is that they don't want to admit to being afraid. So that's the beginning of the process, is admitting, okay, I'm afraid. These are my fears, and then beginning to articulate them, to know them.
So we start looking for the answer to our pain, that we may suffer in silence or only to our friends. And we start looking through therapies or through eating, gambling, television, working, busyness. But we know we don't feel good when we're sitting alone doing nothing. We need to be motivated to do something. So we think as long as we're doing something that we won't feel the pain. And indeed, it becomes another form of sublimation, busyness.
Our work is what we came here to do in this world. When we forget what we came here to do, we become ensnared, entrapped, and possessed by busyness. And busyness is the way that we attempt to deny the inevitability of death. When you still your life, when you find quiet, when you find restfulness, your mortality comes up. And it comes up as an invitation for you to step through it and beyond it and recognize your immortal nature.
We can become limitless by recognizing our true nature, which is limitless. We tend to think of ourselves as being limited to this physical body and our little world, or our friends and family and so on. But in fact, if you look at the mind, if mind looks at mind, or if awareness looks at awareness, what you discover as your true nature is limitless. It has no beginning, it has no end, it has no dimensionality, no size.
So you're out there seeking the truth, trying to fill the void with something meaningful. But you're taking the mind that created the void into the void and trying to find wholeness in a void. It's not going to happen. The mind that creates a problem cannot be the mind that solves it. There must be a new mindset, a new awareness, a new ability to understand what you're really trying to achieve. And I believe that we have lost our passion for authentic life and have connected with a superficial stimulation, anything that stimulates us, loud music, something that is a external, hyper agitating phenomena.
And from a more inner perspective, I think we have a very deep background of ignoring and seeing only what we want, of giving in to our desires. We're brought up with a lot of instant gratification in our Western society, and TV watching, now internet surfing media. The children are prey to the remote control bar and a shortened attention span, and have a lot of attention deficit disorder and so on. I mean, this is a real problem for us, but we're in training these short attention spans. So it's no doubt that we need to do something different to lengthen our attention spans. It's very hard to change habits, although it is possible. And that's what the inner sciences and self-disciplines are about, spiritual practices and so forth, body practices and energy practices, mental trainings, emotional trainings, psychic trainings, meditation, yoga, prayer, how we can recondition and decondition ourselves and find freedom and authenticity.
The way to awaken these capabilities is through meditation, contemplation. In some traditional societies, in the Amazon, they'll take mind-expanding substances to do that. But the core practice is one of self-awareness, of observing yourself, observing the mind, and understanding that the mind is mad.
So we like our movies violent. We like our action fast. We don't want anything that takes its time. So concepts such as scholarship, mastery, no longer a part of it. Instant gratification. So we start seeking ways to get instant gratification. Instant gratification only comes from shortcuts, so we start taking every shortcut there is.
Our culture at the moment that doesn't seem to be supporting real contact, real relationships, and overvaluing material objects, material achievements. And then also there's the phenomenon of TV and video games and entertainment, broadly speaking, where compared to generations past, we have much less need, in a way, to interact with each other on an emotional and social level. So there's somehow all of that, I think, is sort of unmooring people to a certain extent from a sense of connection on a broad level.
Distraction. So everything becomes a spectator event. You're just paying and going to be stimulated by something out there. So everything then becomes externalized. I'm empty in here. I don't want to be alone. I don't feel comfortable just alone with nothing. So the more things I do to occupy my time, but I don't want people to think that I'm an airhead, so I'll do civic things, or I'll do important things, or I'll work late, or I'll keep busy, and people will praise me. So then you become addicted to the sensation of people praising you. But when they stop praising you, you go through withdrawal, just like a heroin addict. And so we, once again, start adding in other sublimations. And the more sublimations we add in, the more imbalanced we become, because everything in life is cumulative. Everything. Every energy you take in becomes a part of you. So think of all the energies you've taken in that were not constructive. Think of anger, think of resentment, think of jealousy and envy. Think of all of the times that someone was negative and you allowed yourself to be the sponge for their energy and you just absorbed it. Energy is real. Energy is a vibration, and it vibrates with intensity based upon what is in it. That's why we have some energies that we just feel good, and other energies where we feel bad. Right now we have more energies that make us feel bad than good. That's why we have so many Americans who are sick. 131 million Americans are overweight. We have 70 million Americans suffering from such severe emotional trauma that they're diagnosed with mental illnesses. 70 million. Well, you're talking about over 1/3 of the American population are really sick. And all of this is preventable, but it's all based upon the energy. You eat a hot dog, a hamburger, French fries, pizzas, sugar. You talk with negative, depressed, angry people. All of that is junk food emotion. And you become it because you've taken it in. Everything you take in, you become. So ask yourself, how many times have you tolerated, even looked for people to communicate with who were going to only tell you their problems? Whine, moan, complain, blame, anger. Well, if they did that, you were around them, that's what you become. Now you're connected with trillions of energies. And every one of those energies is flashing a vibration. It has a memory of what it experienced. And now you know that something's not right, so you start fantasizing. And the fantasy is, let me create an illusion of a better place, a better time, a better relationship I will form in my mind, the ideal relationship. I will fulfill my fantasy. Well, the trouble is, when you meet reality, the fantasy doesn't fit. Here is the fantasy and here's reality, and one doesn't match the other. Now you become discouraged. And when you see that the real world rarely allows us the opportunity to match our illusion with the reality of what we need, then the illusion is kept and the reality is surrendered.
We make choices based on a fantasy of an outcome that we believe is going to meet some deep need that we have. And I think that often that need for many of us is a need to feel loved and accepted. And when we can't get that, either from ourselves or from the people who are important to us, then the need can get diverted into a range of either self-soothing activities like eating or drug or alcohol use, or material pursuits. So there's the idea that if I look a certain way, if I achieve a certain thing, then I will get my needs met. So I think that when we are in a cycle of continually having a sense of dissatisfaction with the outcome of our choices, then that requires really starting to look on a deeper level at what our expectations are. What needs are we trying to address? And can those needs actually get addressed through the venues that we are taking? Because in the long run, other people's acceptance of us doesn't really give us self-acceptance. And in the long run, if we have a fantasy that material possessions are going to give us a sense of well-being, I think that ultimately that is a false fantasy as well.
So we make all of America one big service community. Most relationships are based upon people staying together because they share a common insecurity and fear. That's servicing. And as long as you adapt to it, you're adapting to the weakness, you're creating imbalance, because adaptation creates imbalance. And then one day you've adapted to so many things. Well, you're getting older, so you have to adapt. So we even take on a culture of adaptation. So how can we change this? How can we get back to what's authentic and get our passion for life back? Our passion to explore, our passion to experience, our passion to allow the wonderment of life that each day we wake up and say, wow, what can I experience today that is new and original today?
I always like to talk about lightening up as well as enlightening up on the spiritual journey. And not taking ourselves so seriously could be a first point. Unfortunately, in the religion biz, in the religious game, people are so grimly serious. It's really unfortunate. I like to try to keep an eye on the absurd side of life, the far side, whether it's reading comics or telling jokes or making up jokes myself.
We have the possibility and the opportunity to become the authors of our own stories and not to live out the old, worn-out, exhausted stories of our parents and grandparents. If you're a child of a grandfather from the recession or a survivor from an alcoholic family, or even the genetic stories that we've inherited, we can rewrite those scripts as well. But we have to do it at an energetic level. At the level of that luminous energy field that surrounds the physical body and informs it and organizes it in the same way that a magnet organizes iron filings on a piece of glass. We cannot simply change our mind and hope that our stories will change. The mind is a very crude and superficial level of perception. They're much deeper structures of the psyche. You have to work at the level of the matrix, of the energetic blueprint. And when you can intervene at that level, you have an entirely new mythic, sacred story unfolding around you.
All you have tomorrow is today repeating itself endlessly. And your pain is just a repetition of yesterday. Your insecurity, yesterday. Your judgment, yesterday. Looking at people from the eye of a person who has been fractionalized, yesterday. And then we exclude those people. So think of all the people we exclude who could be a wonderful part of our life because we're carrying on yesterday's activities as if they were still important today. You have to recreate your life every single day, all new. And to do that, you have to realize you are not the same person. Everything's changed. Your cells have changed. Everything's changed. Your biochemistry's changing. It's just we only see it in quantum effects. When you go from 30 to 40, boy, do you see it. When you go from 40 to 50, wow, do you see it. but we don't pay attention to we didn't get from 30 to 40 without process. And at any given day, we could have interfered in the process and changed it. But our conditioning says, no, don't do something that radical. Now, they don't consider the alcohol and the pizzas and the sugar and the obesity and the heart disease and the cancer and the arthritis and the depression radical, but they consider exercise and de-stressing and changing your diet, that's radical. Isn't it amazing? Even how we talk about a situation alters and affects what we're willing to do and not do. We find it more convenient to pledge allegiance to a sustained effort than realizing the only thing we have in life is the moment we're in.
What keeps us from living in the moment, I think, is that we're in our own way. We actually couldn't be nowhere else but the moment, but we don't realize it because we're so preoccupied and distracted. Like James Joyce's character, Leopold Bloom, who said that he lived at a certain distance from his body. This is us, either living outside of our body or living in our head or being elsewhere in past memories and future fantasies. It's just how we live today and how we're brought up, but we can redress this situation. That's why messages like the power of now and be here now, these are ancient timeless messages, secrets recycled for today, and I'm all for it. But we have to have a deeper dimension because we're already now anyway. But we have to have some knowledge or self-knowledge and realization about this now.
And what's aware of the present moment is actually the now. What the present moment is happening in is the now. And the now is a doorway to what is a timeless dimension that is also here.
You have nothing else but this moment. And yet you're trying to build a relationship that lasts. You're trying to build a career that lasts. You're trying to get security for something for the future. There is no future. There is no security out there. All there is the moment you're in. Now, if you did something meaningful with the moment you're in, then there's a good likelihood that the next moment you're going to have is going to be better than the moment before what you did. So if I decide to make positive choices right now, that allows me then to know that tomorrow my choices will not be necessarily burdened by all the things I did wrong. So if I exercise today, my body's going to show it tomorrow. If I eat right today, my body will show it tomorrow. If I think right, my body and my brain will show it tomorrow. If I take on the right attitude and reject, do not accept what I don't want to be, then I will show it tomorrow. But that takes courage, standing up and saying, no, I don't want that energy in me, and I have a right not to have it. Remember, you have a right to reject any energy that doesn't honor you. But it has to honor me spiritually and emotionally and mentally, physically, creatively.
In Buddhism, we call this the sacred moment, the fourth time, that's beyond linear horizontal time, which moves from past, present to future, but it's the fourth time, the ascendant time, that bisects every moment, that connects heaven and earth in an ascending fashion, that's totally now in each moment. That's why we always say tomorrow never comes, because it's always now. If only we could realize it and fully embody it. And for that, I think a little practice helps, like taking a breath. Simple and childish as it may seem, is very deep. Take a breath and relax.
Then once we get here and become aware, we have to almost relax control a bit and open to a little more of a flow sense is what the now has. Flow sense and also a kind of intelligence or awareness that isn't connected to thought, but is actually this kind of intelligence that's prior to thought, where thought comes from, and yet it's kind of spontaneously, naturally aware. And once we know this, once this is on the map of our awareness, people report that it's very easy and that there's a sense of a natural happiness and a sense of a connectedness.
And cherish it. It's the holy now. It's the sacred moment. It's the timeless instant. It's not just a cheap version of now.
meant to be in the moment and experience life in the moment. But society can't handle that. Society cannot handle your freedom. It's too dangerous. The last thing society can handle is someone who has free expression, free will. It will challenge the very stability of every major institution in our society. So it has to control you, and it controls you through guilt and fear. Guilt and fear are the bookends that keep you doing the predictable and the damaging. They want you to drink the cola, even though your liver is going to be hurt, your kidneys ruined, your stomach ruined, gastric reflux, because then they'll give you a drug or medicine to service you for something you could have prevented, and they help cause. First they create the disease, then they mistreat it. And then they complain about all the symptoms without ever looking at the cause. And that doesn't happen unless you're complicit. You have to give your power over, which means you're taking someone else's belief, allowing it to connect with you, and then vibrating your whole life. Your consciousness must exclude everything. You can only be myopic. You have to see only what the leader of your tribe says you should see and do. Even when intuition, the spirit telling you, speaking out, and you stop it. Even when common sense, you stop it, suppress it. Even when rational thought, you repress it and go upon belief, what you're connected to.
The things that you have believed up to now may or may not be true based on the teacher or the experience in which you acquired those truths. So when we become conscious, there's an opportunity to say, before I make a judgment, before I make a decision, I should be more open and look at what's going on, because perhaps the foundation of my beliefs is not entirely correct or altered to such an extent that if I bought those beliefs, I'm going to be off in the wrong direction. So it's really incumbent upon us to own many of the beliefs that we have are not accurate. And so how can you avoid making a decision from inaccurate beliefs? And the answer is not allowing the subconscious mind to do that. And therefore it means allowing the conscious mind, and if the conscious mind is aware at this moment, it will recognize, I really don't know all the facts. And therefore, in honesty, I should be open to listening to all the facts. This allows me to have a dialogue, get a clearer picture of what's going on, and not act from what you'd almost say is a gut reaction response of the subconscious mind, which in most cases is uninformed.
Belief systems are a very important part of life. It's good to think about them and consider them perhaps more than we usually do. Otherwise, we may be condemned, as I'm afraid we often are, to be following in lockstep with received and inherited beliefs that we ourselves have neither examined and found out to be true or workable for ourselves, nor questioned enough to really have a good sense of what we're believing in, why, and what are the implications of them.
And then one day you look around and think, whoa, we are a lot of people in denial of the truth. We thought the so-called experts would give us the answers, but all these experts, these professors and scientists and public policymakers and religious leaders, we look around at the whole world, we see an awful lot of confusion and mess, and they have told us that it was right, and we trusted them, and it was wrong. We were lied to. We were told not to trust these people, so we didn't listen to these people. And these people had the answer. Think of the people who said, eat your fiber. They were called health nuts, remember? Think of the doctors who said use chelation and vitamin drips. They were considered quacks. Think of the environmentalists like Rachel Carson and others who said, don't pollute your environment. Think of the people who wanted peace for everyone, respect and honor life. They were considered delusional, naive. No, they were right, but they didn't have the power. Power will not share itself. It will only manifest. It will reward those who are the most true believers. Think how many times you have made a positive choice and tried to influence the people you love, and they just wouldn't listen to you. I couldn't help my mother and father. Couldn't help anyone in my family. Couldn't help my brother. Because they didn't believe that what I was saying was right. They were proud of me for being successful, but they had never opened a book and read it because their belief system wouldn't allow them that freedom. Because after all, if they believed in me, they wouldn't have smoked or drank. They wouldn't have eaten meat, not exercised. They would have lived differently and they'd still be alive. So my belief system that I grew up with killed my parents. But it kills everyone. And that same belief system makes you feel that you need a relationship in order to be whole and happy and healthy. And now the only relationship you should have in life that's meaningful is with yourself. Because that's the only one that you're responsible for, that you can have a positive influence on. Then, if you're able to meet other people who are themselves in balance and working their own dynamic, then you can share moments, and all you have are moments. And when you share a moment and you find that passion and that excitement and that feeling generates, you're going to be remembering it and recreating it. And part of what you're going to want to do is do it over again. And you know the problem when you want to do it over again? It's never the same. And now you're questioning it. Didn't feel the same. And then you start wondering, why isn't it the same? Well, because it's not the same. This moment's not the moment that was yesterday's moment.
Many of us have tried to live in the present, and in some ways our minds will become frustrated by trying to be present, right? By trying to focus. So what actually happens is that our attention becomes too rigid, too controlled, and too much attempting to be in something that we can't ever grasp. For most of us, upon this first glimpse or taste of this, there is a sense of being distracted. And what's happening with this is that the habit of our mind, of the conditioning, of the kind of patterning, both in our attention and awareness, and also the habits of our brain, which are just kind of in a sense, are just these neuronal nets, this network of neurons that are just firing in patterns that they know. Because of this activity, our attention or awareness hasn't been trained to remain, and it doesn't know it can remain in the now. So it innocently just goes right back to identifying with that which is most active.
And we want to recreate all those previous moments. So most of our life is spent trying to recreate something to give us a sensation that we really enjoyed. But we can't. And then we get angry because we've tried to make everything a duplication, a carbon copy. I want more of the same. And the only thing that can come close to it is an artificial stimulation, because that doesn't change. And that's why we rely upon the addictive behavior of artificial stimulation. And then we surrender trying altogether. We just become complacent. We say, okay, I can't change the way I want. I can't feel the way I want, so I really don't care. And then we disconnect from believing we can make a difference in our own lives because we feel we haven't. Because no matter how hard we work, and we do, we still don't feel fulfilled. We still feel emptiness. We're still trying. All the people I know who are successful, they're also empty. And you ask them to spend a day alone, they would go out of their skin. Watch a baby boomer go on a vacation with a cell phone, right? They can't be just present. They can't. I go down to Jamaica, I just lay in a hammock and that's it. I'm just in a hammock and looking at the ocean, and we got to go, look, we got Dingman's Falls, no, I don't have to go anywhere. I'm here, I'm happy, goodbye. We're exhausting the basic energy of our chi, and the chi is what you have to rejuvenate. And the chi can't be rejuvenated by busyness. The chi, your essential life force, can only be rejuvenated through quiet, reflective, contemplative stillness. You have to just be alone, be with nature, then you rejuvenate. And yet we're running out to do yoga, and then I'll do meditation, and then I'll go get my wheatgrass, and you're exhausted at the end of the day. In an effort to be happy, you end up exhausted. Looking for more of what you once had as if that's going to fill you up. So let's take some steps in our journey. Let's see what we can do to bring us a little closer to living an authentic life.
The way to stay in balance is not to do less things, but to do them more gracefully. It's to learn how to juggle better and turn it into an art form. It's to bring beauty into all of your actions. Have beautiful exchanges with people. Create beauty. Don't just create a meal, create a beautiful meal. Don't just have a dialogue, have a beautiful dialogue, a substantive dialogue. So beauty is the key. The Navajo have a beautiful poem that says, beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty all around me. In beauty I walk. Everything I touch in beauty.
The more that you resist changing, the more you fight the changes you should need, the greater your pain's going to be. Pain doesn't come from change. Pain doesn't come from make a positive choice. Pain comes from holding on to the old choice and trying to let go of it. It's like ripping your skin off, letting go of some of these old habits. And that's where pain comes from.
The law of purity states that the world will mirror back to you perfectly the condition of your love and of your soul. If your soul is stained, if you are burdened by the traumas of your childhood, if you carry around a huge bag full of stories of how wounded, of how terrible your life has been, of how you were so disappointed by your last relationship, then the river of your life is contaminated. Those are not waters that anything will grow, that will feed anything, that you can drink and be nurtured by. So we have to purify, we have to clean our river.
Being in the moment, there's no pain. There's no confusion, there's no stress, you're just in the moment. You're not judging it. And what you're not judging, you can accept, and it's in the moment. Accepting being in the moment allows you to be present for your own experience. But we're bringing a judgmental mind to all of our experiences. And if we don't have our mind, we're asking other people, I did that, what do you think? I don't know, why'd you do that? I don't know. How do you feel? I don't know, how should I have felt? I don't have to have anybody tell me what I like. I don't need an interpreter. I'll experience it for myself and I'll make my own judgment. And I'll stay neutral till I do experience it. I'll let the experience dictate whether I liked or didn't like it. I don't go to a movie because a critic says go to it. I go to it and I experience it. I either like it or I don't like it. You know, it's that simple. I'll try a recipe. I'll like it or not like it. If I don't like it, I'll try to change it until I do like it. I'll master it. And repetition, mastery. Repetition, mastery. We have lost the capacity to master the energy. And without mastery, we don't go forward. That requires discipline, and it requires confidence to be in the moment. And then one day, if you are willing to have discipline and mastery and combine your passion to drive it, the fuel to drive it is passion, then one day you wake up and you're really more open. You're way up here in openness. Your whole life is changing for the better. But if you don't do mastery, and if you don't have that discipline, if you don't focus upon what's essential, if you don't take that inner journey, nothing's going to change. It's going to be positive, just more of the same. So here are some questions I'd like you to focus on. Do you have awareness but no passion? A lot of people can talk you to death about anything. They can even talk you to death about emotions. But they have no passion. Because their passion is inside of a box, and the box is surrounded by guilt and shame, fear and insecurity. So how do you open the box if it's totally protected by beliefs that have been forced upon us that we've accepted as real? If you don't open the box, your real passion will never be explored. So we play a game. We play the game that my emotions should equal my reality. Let me tell you something, your emotions are almost never real. Almost never real. They're part of the theater of our abstract existence. They're an illusion. And people play upon our emotions, don't they? All the time. When people want you to buy something, they play upon your emotions. When they want you to believe in something, they create fear. Boy, doesn't fear get people to galvanize together? Even if it's unreal, even if it's taken out of any realistic context, people abrogate their whole rights and power to someone else because of fear.
So if we have a fear, a lot of energy is tied up in that. How am I going to avoid this situation? How can I protect myself? How can I eliminate this fear? There's so much energy tied up in that. If that can be released through befriending it, through integrating that disowned part of the psyche, then all that becomes available to us.
Actualize, don't theorize, don't intellectualize. We talk a problem to death. Talking won't change it. Actualizing it will. I'm a doer, not a confessor, complainer, whiner, moaner, blamer, or talker.
In my clinical experience and my understanding of how the mind works, it generally is not effective in the long term to just make a decision to have a different kind of thought. Because generally our thoughts are driven by deeper processes. And when we can address the deeper processes that are driving the thinking, then often our thinking will change. Now, this is not to say that we don't need to use our conscious processes to move us in the direction of health, because often we may have to make a conscious decision to try something new, to try a new technique, to face something that we're afraid of facing. So we certainly do need to have our cognitive processes available to us to support moving towards health. But generally speaking, I find that it's not very effective to try to just think differently and then expect that the feelings will change, because there are deeper processes that need to be attended to.
Do you spend more time and effort seeking happiness or avoiding suffering? Most people spend their time trying to avoid suffering. That's why we live defensively. That's why we don't stand out and be counted for our beliefs. I don't care what people think of me. I'm going to say what I believe is the truth. I'm going to say what I believe is important. I remember once I got up in front of an audience, and it was over at a synagogue in Brooklyn. And I've been invited there. I have a lot of Orthodox Jewish people in my audience. And I started talking about the suffering of a cow when they're killed. And it doesn't matter whether they're ritually slaughtered or not. They still suffer. And I'd recorded a cow that was ritually suffered. And people, I knew they were going to argue the issue because their beliefs told them it doesn't suffer. Well, the belief isn't real. The suffering of the cow is. So I showed how the cow was yanked up by a chain. You could hear all the bones cracking in its arm, its leg as it was pulled up. The whole weight is on this bones, and it was crying out, and the cut in the throat didn't kill it the first time, and it was bleeding out. It takes time to bleed out. And I said, you're aware that you could cut off your head and hold it up like the French did in the guillotines and the English, and for up to a minute you're fully conscious, even though your head is cut off. So imagine having your head cut off and severed and being shown to a crowd, and you're fully aware that your head is cut off, and the crowd's looking at you because there's still blood and oxygen in the brain. Scary thought, isn't it? Well, when things are killed, there's a crisis in the body. all of these hundreds of trillions of cells go into crisis. But people will try to think, well, it doesn't matter. It's like, going after an enemy of 10 soldiers in a village and killing 200 people in the village to get to the 10 soldiers. Well, it was, acceptable casualties. Well, not to the people who got killed. And then we don't even feel anything more for them once we get the logo that we got to kill those people in order to kill those people. We no longer feel the concern for the suffering. We're only concerned for our objective. That's the kind of myopic thinking that we use in our society for almost all problems. Next, we wait for that something to happen to ignite our interest, to inspire us to action. We whine and complain like spoiled children for something we are not prepared to do. Again, we wait for that something to happen as if something's got to happen to us. We have to be saved. We have to be rescued. We have to be helped from something out there, someone out there. And all we can do until that happens is whine about our circumstances. No one's going to come and save you. You've got to become highly proactive. It's your life. You're the only one who's going to be responsible for self-actualizing it. And we keep looking for the isms. I'll become a vegetarian, so vegetarianism, or I'll become a communist, communism, or I'll become Catholic, Catholicism. We're always looking for an ism to redeem our life and redeem our suffering, to give us our answers. So once again, we go on a journey outside of ourselves. Now, it's not that these isms don't have things of value. They do. But no system out there is as valuable as the one in here. It's got to start in here. Next, distraction diminishes the effort and the results. Distraction diminishes the present moment. You must stop the distractions in order to focus upon what you really need to connect with. If I want something to change, if I want to connect with my happiness and passion and joy, I've got to stop all the things that are keeping me from doing it. And yet every day people load up their life with so many distractions, there's no time for this journey. Well, I got to work, and I got to take care of the kids, and I got to walk the dog, and I got to, go to the store. And next thing you know, they have a whole idea that their life is nothing more than a to-do list of responsibilities.
The interesting thing about excuses is that I think that if we were to really look into it, in any given situation where we have an excuse or a rationalization for something that we did or did not do, that indicates that we have a conflict. There's one part of us that really wants to do the healthy thing, and there's another part of us that does not want to do the healthy thing. And we need to understand that there are very powerful unconscious dynamics that are driving our decision making. So we may have a conscious intention to do something healthy, for example, not to eat something that is unhealthy for us. But we may have also an underlying motivation to sabotage ourselves in various ways. And that may be for a number of reasons. For example, it may be that we have an unconscious sense of attachment to failing, because it may be that through failure we can stay psychically attached to familiar situations. So sometimes when we are making excuses for ourselves, when we haven't done something healthy that we intended to do, I think it really helps to be able to look on a deeper level at what was driving that behavior. So my perspective on excuses would be to be able to balance it with a sense of curiosity. I think that generally speaking, curiosity is so much better than self-criticism. You know, that if you didn't do something that you intended to do, or you acted out in a way that you felt bad about, the natural tendency is to feel self-critical and then just to continue this cycle of feeling bad about oneself. But what that does is that maintains a constellation where we can have an intention to do one thing, but we have a deeper intention on a certain level to not change. So if we can replace self-criticism with curiosity, and often it can require the help of another person, like a therapist or a trusted friend or some kind of person to bounce it off of. If we can really be curious about, wow, why didn't I do that thing I intended to do? There must be a part of me internally that wanted that to happen. What is that part of myself needing? Or what am I afraid of in terms of the outcome of that healthier choice? Because until we address those deeper attachments and the fears that we have about becoming healthier, becoming more successful, becoming more individuated, it will be very hard for us to really act on our desires to be healthy.
Instead of saying, what can I do with my life to still be responsible? You have children, you have to be responsible. In your relationship, you have to be responsible. But how can you keep anything from being a distraction? You can still be responsible and not be distracted. And the only way you can do that is take a look at everything in your life and see what in your life is a distraction. And check it off. And then take it out. For every distraction that you eliminate, you have allowed yourself free time. Freedom. Time is freedom. If you don't have time, you don't have freedom to be. And that's what frustrates us. We're so caught up in trying to fill our time with things that we can justify as meaningful, and hence our life becomes a meaningful existence because we have meaningful work or meaningful relationship or meaningful responsibilities. That's an illusion. You can have the most responsible work and responsibilities in the world, and it doesn't mean that your life is authentic. One of the frustrations is trying to feed a shadow of self, where all your energy goes into the shadow of self and none goes into the real self. So all your efforts are for nothing. Because at the end of the day, you're still empty because you fed the wrong self. You fed the socially controlled self instead of the authentic self. So stop the distractions. Because remember, when you distract yourself, you can't live this moment over again. Next, do not allow others' narrow view and limitation to become yours. And how many times have people told us you can't do something, you shouldn't do something, because they wouldn't do it? Well, if I took that view, I'd still be in West Virginia, in my small hometown. I'd be working in the Oames shovel factory like all my other in-laws, and I'd be as miserable as they were. But they adapted to that. They looked at Sunday in canasta as the saving grace for a week that was miserable for them. But they didn't believe it could be better. They believed they were meant to be that. When they got older, they didn't believe you could change, so they didn't. Let me explain this, that everything you believe becomes a reality in your brain. And that belief, positive or negative, can manifest in health, happiness, or sickness and disease. So be very careful about what you believe in.
One of the significances of this incredible literature that is emerging in the neurosciences and in cognitive psychology between the relationship between early childhood stress and long-term poor health outcomes is that we need to address within ourselves the templates that we bring to current situations so that we can free ourselves to be more who we really are, and we can also allow ourselves to perceive other people as they really are instead of who we expect them to be.
So try to believe in the best that you can be, the greatest moments, the happiest, the healthiest.
We're the first species, we perhaps together with the dolphins and the whales, that have a brain sophisticated enough to begin to chart the course of our own destiny. So we can break out of this preordained fate that has been selected by our childhood, by our genes, by our karma, and to step into our destiny. Remember that fate is fatal, it's always deadly, and we do have the choice. We do have the choice to become the authors of our own story, to step into our calling and our destiny.
I run fast. I've won over 600 races. Why? Because before I race in my mind. I see it. And once I see it, it becomes my reality. And I keep focused on it. And I just keep honoring that energy. I remember once I was in a race, and it was in New Jersey, and it was the National 40K Championship race. And the best athletes in America in my age group were there. And about 6 miles into this race, my buddy said, wow, it's a hot day, it's really gonna be tough. And instantly I felt the energy drain. Like, wow, it's tough, and now it gives you an excuse. Because your fatigue starts in the brain, not the muscles. So I thought to myself, no, this is an opportunity to challenge the belief. So I said, no, it's a great day and the sun is energizing me. I want it to get hotter. The hotter it gets, the more power I'm gonna have. So I kicked in and I just left him in the dust and I just started moving. And people said, some of the other judges and people said, Gary, you're going too fast, you're gonna burn out. You're gonna burn out. And I said, no, I'm gonna burn up the track, I'm not gonna burn out. And I got faster and faster. And every time we come to a hill, I said, hill, you're my friend. The hill energizes me, and I'd go right up that hill. And about the 18th mile, the lead athletes, who were the national champions, saw me, and I came right up and went right by him. At the end of the race, I was about 2 minutes ahead of the guy in second place. And it was the first time that a master athlete won a national 40K race. And I set an American record that day, won the race. Overall, of all Americans, of all age groups, I came in first. How is that possible? Because I believed it was possible. Had I not believed it, I wouldn't have created it. So what you believe, you can create. If you also have the discipline to master what you believe.
We are able to break out of the cultural trance that we've all been educated into and start dreaming our world newly.
If you don't master it, then you won't fulfill it. Having just a belief doesn't do us any good unless we put it to the test. And everything I've ever done in my life, I've done against the odds of it happening. Because I put my mind to it, and with that mind, I allowed the energy to become a reality, and the reality in my cell and the reality in my energy became the reality of what I actualized. So every truth starts with a belief that it's true, and then manifest it. The self-actualization, the positive thought, with the right discipline, will allow it to become a reality. And when you believe that you can survive, you can. If you believe the doctor says you've only got 2 months, 2 days, 18 seconds to live, you'll die exactly then. Because you've allowed that person's reality to become yours. So be very careful about the reality you accept. So you're living a confluence of different beliefs, and then you're confused by everything that starts breaking down and no ideal is then optimally lived up to. Well, how can it be? It's not your reality. It's everyone else's reality that you're participating in. Where's uniqueness of self? That's why to be thin, you have to think thin. To be healthy, you have to think healthy. And I have to keep visualizing what my ideal body should be. I want my mind to be able to create, not be passive. So I choose not to watch television. I choose not just to sit around and listen. I choose to be active with what I want to create.
The way that we raise our vibratory frequency, and remember that everything pulsates in the universe. We're surrounded by a luminous energy field that is created by our DNA, which emits radio frequencies, photons actually, at the rate of 100 per second. And this is what creates this luminous energy field. It has a vibratory quality. So the way to upgrade the quality of our field to vibrate at a higher frequency, if we would, is through four ways. One of them is through what we eat. We are what we eat. Eat healthy, eat clean, eat organic. By what you think. Look at the thoughts you entertain. What settles in and inhabits and possesses your mind? You can choose to invite those thoughts and those sensations that you want to engage. The third is by the quality of the relationships that we have. Bring beauty to every relationship, to everyone you touch. Engage gracefully. Engage with forgiveness, with compassion. But to me, the key word here is beauty. And the fourth is be aware of the energetic dialogue that you're having all the time with everyone and with everything. Insist on the highest quality, the highest level, the highest integrity in all your energetic engagements.
We shift our identity from the fixer, from the sufferer, from the victim, from the worrier, to that which is aware of what's happening. If we simply unhook from the attachment or the identification or the enmeshment with this sense of needing to fix and be better, and open ourselves to a kind of awareness, to a being that's here and now, open, clear, and big enough, vast enough, loving enough to accept on its own without even trying to accept. There begins to be a sense of habits losing their inertia.
I came from a poor background, poor, real poor. But I didn't believe I should stay poor. And I didn't think poor. And I didn't think victim. The idea in America is if you've got something, exploit it. What if instead of exploiting it, you want to give it away? Well, then you're stupid. No, you're not stupid. Because you're not afraid of loss, and you don't believe in shortages. And you're not motivated from fear. You're like a river to the people who need you. You never stop flowing with the energy. But people think, I can't do anything. Well, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? I got to take care of me. Then you get the insecurity and the greed. I can't give it away. It's worth something. And then we start bartering value. So the person that's most famous charges the most. And then everyone else who's not famous has to pay what they can't afford. And we start artificially inflating real estate and stocks and clothes. A designer outfit costs what to make? $100? Charge you $1,000, $2,000, $5,000? Next. Do you work at controlling or creating the external activities with the hope that if successful, the recognition you receive will overcome and replace your inner security, doubts, and fears? So quite simply, do you believe that what you do out there will make you feel more secure in here? And if that's the case, then you're going to try to control everything that people think about you. You'll try to control through your actions, your vocabulary, what you do for people. But that's a game. That means that you're not authentic and honest. It means that you're trying to put on an image because you want to control the reverse image that people see of you. Hello, it's just an illusion. Get back to the moment. If you're in a moment and you're honest, look for the honesty and authenticness around you and see what matches. Matching energies allows you to feel the completeness of the moment. If all I can do is make someone else responsible for trying to make me happy, then that's a false relationship. That'll never work, no matter how hard people try. It's scary to think that you're that powerful, that within yourself you could be complete. Because we're made to believe that we're nobody without somebody else, without the right job, the right clothes, right friends, right place, right acceptance. So we're striving constantly for external acceptance. And I'm saying the external acceptance is not material. The internal acceptance is to love yourself completely, unconditionally.
Really, one of the greatest satisfactions is to feel connected to oneself, to feel integrated with oneself in a sense that I know who I am, I know what I'm good at, I know what I'm not good at, I know what I'm interested in, and I'm able to take actions towards the things and the achievements and the experiences that I want. And to the extent that we can reduce our narcissistic investment in outcome and replace that with a sense of self-acceptance and an involvement in what is really important to us, then I think that we are freer to be authentic and to make choices that will have a much greater chance of leading to outcomes that really nourish us.
Life is nothing if not joy. We have to find the joy in our lives, otherwise we're just marching, we're just keeping time.
Just smile and say, the universe has given me another lesson to learn, and I'll learn from this lesson. I'll be a better person, a stronger person, a wiser person because of this crisis. So crisis will be stepping stones, not something to cause you to go to pieces and look for a sublimating outside way of tranquilizing your pain. Last question. Our belief allows only for our truth. Hence, everything else is not true. Again, our belief tells us what is true. Everything that they don't tell us is true becomes untrue. Therefore, we fear any truth other than our own. So if there's holistic medicine has a truth, we can't accept it. If yoga is a truth, we can't accept it. If organic food is a truth, we can't accept it. If someone trying to propose how to solve world problems and conflicts with peace as a deterrent rather than weapons as a deterrent, we cannot accept it. Any truth that is uniquely your own that does not match the system you're a part of will be rejected. And the strength of your character, the strength of your vital force must be questioned and say, what am I going to believe in? My truth or that truth? Almost every truth that you've been told by major institutions, examine them objectively and fairly and you'll find that they're half-truths or full lies. I can't blame them for misleading us for their own needs, to maintain their power and control over us. I can ask us what keeps us within the known when the known has not honored who we are. It's our responsibility then to find the truth within our own lives. Seek the truth of what your body needs, seek the truth of what your mind needs. And you'll know what is nourishing. The lie denourishes, denatures. It's devoid of positive substance. Think of the conversations where there's anger, hatred, jealousy, envy, greed, and you'll see the lie. It does not benefit you. To embrace it, the truth is, don't be envious, don't be jealous, don't be greedy. Be supportive of the best that people can be. But no one's going to be better than what you expect of them. You cannot improve your performance in life to raise your expectation. Expectation leads performance. So if you want to have a better life, you must focus upon a higher level of expectation. And that means you have to get out of your comfort zone. Our comforts predict that we're not going to be doing anything that would change our circumstance. Comfort addiction is the #1 addiction. We have to live beyond our comforts, go into discomfort, embrace pain, learn its lesson, and then move forward from there. At the end of a day, what is most essential is what you communicate by connecting in an authentic way with someone. When you connect with authentic energy, you don't have to explain it. You don't have to discuss it. It's a knowing that transcends any other form of communication. Look for the truth in all things. Look for honesty in all things. Become authentic in everything you do and seek. Believe in the completeness of your being. Then master it. And let none of the distractions and voices and conditioning interfere in the process. And wake up one day, look in the mirror, and you're a different human being. Thank you all very much.